I want to take a moment and can we try to think of any law that gives the government the power to make a decision?
I know what you're going to ask.
About a man's body.
No.
The draft? We're just gonna pretend like for the last 100 years, as soon as a boy turned 18, there was a possibility.
The draft, of course, the draft. How could we forget the draft? It's only mentioned at every opportunity, despite the fact it hasn't impacted anyone under the age of 68, won't impact anyone over the age of 26, and over the last 50 years, it's impacted 0 men. None. Not a single one. Since 2000, just in the last 24 years, while 0 men have died as a result of the draft, there have been 5,686 total combat deaths. 16,000 women died in childbirth and 26,000 women died at the hands of an intimate partner. That's 43,000, 7 times the number of combat deaths. Women who have died for engaging in the far more dangerous activity of starting a family. And legislation restricting access to birth control and denying women's right to bodily autonomy has only increased these deaths. In Texas, as a direct result of overturning Roe v. Wade, the rate of maternal mortality cases rose by 56%. Even so, the biggest cause of death of pregnant women is not medical complications. It's homicide, the majority of which is perpetrated by their intimate partners, mostly men. And forcing pregnancy on women is only going to increase the number of women who die at the hands of the men in their homes. But as horrifying as all of that is, a study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association looked across the 14 states that have a complete ban on terminating pregnancies and estimated that there were a total of 64,000 forced pregnancies as a result of rape. And it's not just women who are impacted. In some states, such as Texas, there are bounty laws where private citizens are encouraged and rewarded with a $10,000 prize for reporting on other private citizens who aid or abet someone in obtaining a termination in a state where it is legal. There's also implications for mandatory reporters, teachers, doctors, healthcare, social workers, and attorneys who can face consequences and potential loss of their careers for having conversations discussing the options that are available. It all just highlights how privileged men's position is, that the only comparable legislation to that which directly impacts the lives of millions of women, forces tens of thousands of women into unwanted pregnancies, puts thousands of more women to death, and impacts the livelihoods of millions of healthcare, education, and legal workers, is legislation that requires men to register in case of the possibility of having to potentially go to war. Comparing women's pain, suffering, death, and bodily autonomy being denied right now to the fact that men's bodily autonomy could be denied at some point in the future. Maybe. And this lack of desire to even sympathize with women's plight, to instead mock, ridicule, and insult them, is exactly how we got here.